And I'll ask call this meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Okay. I have nothing. We did have a closed meeting. I have nothing to report out of the closed session. Presentations. First, we have an introduction from local artist Julie Denny by Barb Lee. Welcome, Barb. It's always great when you bring in local artists, and it's good to see the artwork up on the walls today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have to do that, don't I? Okay, can you hear me now? There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to read a quote from Julie to start with this. Nature is good for the soul. Through my work, I try to connect the outside to your inside, be it green and gold landscape in oils or the wildlife of Ontario on pastel on board or paddles. I invite you to listen to the crickets with me and enjoy watching the blowing grasses, the ever-changing sky, and some sweet little living things just looking to exist. So Julie is a trained graphic artist and a marketing professional, and her career has a small advertising agency has allowed her to the experience and confidence to take on entrepreneurial undertakings at the age of 28. Hands-on creative adventures include making ottomans, decorating, planning events, home renovations, as well as stained glass and metal forging. A love of oil painting developed after taking a few lessons where she had previously only used acrylics. As a reintroduction to producing fine art, Julie submitted pieces to the Elora Tarot Card Project. I think you can all remember that from the museum, and has since often taken brush to canvas using her own photography as reference. And more recently, Julie has been drawing a series of woodland animals with charcoal and pastel on wood panel and paddles. Julie's been engaged in our community in many ways and was key to the creation of the Monster March and many aspects of Monster Month, both which, as you all know, are major community and tourism attractions every October. So I'm going to invite Julie to just say a few words herself, and I hope you all take a few minutes to enjoy the art on the walls. Thanks very much. Julie, can you pop up?
Sure.
Thanks, Barb. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thank you. If you don't mind, I'll direct everybody. For anybody who doesn't know me, I've been here for about 15 years.
Excuse me, we're live streaming, so you have to speak at the podium.
Sorry.
But you know
Sorry,
what?
everybody.
They
My back
can
to you.
see the screen.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So as I was mentioning, I've been here for about 15 years, and I'm a small town girl, and so coming to a small town in nearby Hillsburg was quite nice, because everybody here, obviously, as you all know, loves artists, and the lifestyle here just really opened up for me. I came to start a bed and breakfast and turned the convent in town into a B&B many years ago and have sold it since. And as Barb mentioned, got involved with Monster Month and started the Halloween parade quite some time ago. And people like Barb and Kirk are running it with sensational Elora now. And some of the other things I do are graphic art. I have a couple of things here, like the sculpture tour brochure and the art walk, among a few others of my graphic art. And I was going to come and tell you a little bit about how I work on the pastels, and it started because of the Elora Center for the Arts, which has allowed some of us chicken creators to submit something and still be behind the scenes instead of standing in front of a number of people. And so I started with the paddle, and I submitted a beaver, which I worked on pastels. I was away at the time and working on wood in pastel rather than oils, which take forever to dry, facilitated that for me to be able to get that done. So I draw with a piece of charcoal first, and then spray it so then it's fixed, and then you can travel in layers that way, just adding on charcoal and pencil, and then spraying it, and then stuff it in your backpack or your suitcase and travel around, unlike oils, which they're wet for quite some time. So as Barb had said, I use my own photography for my oils, but the woodland animals, I don't have that much opportunity to run into any, so I work on other people's photography and enjoy doing so. So thank you all very much for your attention and the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Julie. Any questions from council? Great, appreciate you coming in, and
Yes.
thanks for letting us borrow your art for a bit.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you all very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you. Okay, we have a recommendation for confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of Center Washington confirm the agenda for its meeting held July 22nd, 2019. Mover, Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor McCrae. All in favor? And that's carried. We have a confirmation of a whole list of minutes here. Have a recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meetings held April 18th, May 13th, May 22nd, June 3rd, June 10th, June 17th, 2019 be adopted as circulated. Move for that recommendation, Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor Van Leeuwen. All in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations today. Moving on to one of the big items on our agenda, the Water Supply Master Plan. Notice of study completion, and I'll turn things over to our Managing Director of Infrastructure Services, Colin Baker, to start things off. Welcome, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Linton, members of council. Very pleased to be here today to present the final Water Supply Master Plan document. The Water Supply Master Plan's been work in progress for about a year and a half now. We started the process back in January 2018, where the township retained the consulting firm AECOM to assist with the preparation of the study. And just want to introduce a couple staff from AECOM, Patty Quackenbush, who you're familiar with, kind of managing the project. And we also have Jason Murchison, who's a new face. Jason's the professional geoscientist and senior manager of the geosciences group at AECOM. Hopefully I got that right. Yeah? Does that sound right? Okay, good. And Matt Alexander, who's been in front of council a few times now. He's enjoying a well-deserved, I hear, vacation this week. So if Matt's watching, hi Matt. Yeah, and so we it's been a journey over the last year and a half. We participated in the Key Projects Open House to get as much input and feedback from the community as possible. So the April 4th, 2018 Key Projects Open House, the April 24th, 2019 Key Projects Open House, we had our display boards, Patty and Matt were there as well, and getting as much input and feedback on the study. In total, we figure we probably had about 220 members of the community through the boards at those two events, which is fantastic. We also came to council back in January 2019, provided an orientation session then, and just more recently on June 10th, just last month, Patty and Matt provided kind of an overview of the key recommendations and conclusions coming out of the Water Supply Master Plan study. And specifically was draft technical memorandum number 3, which contains kind of the water supply analysis of water supply alternatives. So essentially all tasks are complete for the Water Supply Master Plan. The document includes all 3 technical memoranda, 1, 2, and 3, groundwater resource analyses, a great summary report, in Appendix E that provides an overview of the community feedback received throughout the process. And there's also an implementation strategy provided in the report. The report is available, the full document is available on connectcw.ca/water-supply. So it's still available in draft format for review and comment by the public. And in my report here, I've attached the executive summary. The report itself is fairly hefty. It's about, I think it's over 500 pages or so. But the executive summary is a little more easy to digest. And it's provided in attachment number 1. And also, if for those that are kind of more visual, the presentation that Patty and Matt provided back on June 10th is provided in attachment number 2. So what we're staff are seeking from council is essentially that council endorse the water supply master plan and direct staff to publish the notice of study completion in the newspaper. So if council approves that today, we'd be looking at a 45-day review period. So this is all kind of, I guess, mandatory through the environmental assessment process and Environmental Assessment Act process, where we look at publishing kind of the final document and still receive comments, but we're looking for endorsement at the council before we do that. And so based on, if we get kind of final approval on the 29th at council, the review period would start August 8th, 2019, and would end September 23rd, 2019. And so, yeah, so a full copy of the report, like I mentioned, is available on the website. We also have a few hard copies available, which we will make available at the counter here, so available during office hours for the public to come in and review it. We'll also have a copy at the Pilkington office as well. And I think with that, I'll just open up to questions from council, and we've got the team here that we can respond. So.
Great, thanks a lot, Colin. I just also wanted to identify, I think all members of council did receive a letter from Save Our Water, and I just wanted to read the last paragraph there, that the residents are impressed with the work done on the water supply master plan. We appreciate the township move this project forward to begin in 2018. So they're fully supportive of this document, and that means a lot to us here at council. Questions from council? Councilor McElwain?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say it's a great report, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it from AECOM as well as staff. The only two comments I have. The first one is the report stipulates 2 or 3 times throughout that it is assumed, or I can't remember the wording exactly, I'd have to go back and find it, but that there's no purchase of land required as part of the budgeting process. And that's not very realistic, so I'm just wondering if, as we look at the total investment over the next 20 years, should we be including some land costs into the total project?
Through Mayor Linton, yeah. So as far as I know, there is land costs, and I can maybe get Patty to point out the area. Yeah, certainly where we, when we were looking at the exploratory drilling program, the plan was not to purchase land as part of that we would drill in township road allowances. So we wouldn't be purchasing land, but certainly if a location looks like it's viable, and we go through the Class EA process, and it's looking favorable, certainly, yeah, we'll need land to purchase for a well house, for disinfection, for, yeah, that'll be a given for sure.
I probably just misunderstood. Okay. I thought it said that we weren't including land costs here, that's all.
No, land acquisition is included with the exception of Area 7 where there is municipal land available.
Okay, so Patty just said land acquisition costs are included with the exception of Area 7 where there's municipal land available. Yeah. My second comment, and it's basically the same comment I made a month ago. I'm just wondering if we can't include in there, and I know that we don't have planning data beyond 2041, but we will have growth beyond 2041, and kind of a projection of when the next well might be needed based upon our growth plan. Yeah, through Mayor Linton. So yeah, and I think we've been fairly consistent with the responses there that these are plans that typically get updated every 5 to 10 years. And so we will kind of revisit, kind of the outcomes of the work. There's quite a bit of work to be done here. But there is, like, if I recall our cost tables, there is, like, the next slide, it does extend beyond 2041, starting to look at, that, I think it's a 4th well location. The investigations would need to occur within the 2041 planning horizon, but securing the well would be just outside. So, I think it's still a reasonable approach that we've taken, kind of looking at those with the idea that we're doing those updates every 5 to 10 years.
Anything else from council? Councilor McRae?
I'll just read what I have to say here. We tend to take for granted that when we turn on a faucet, water will be there without consideration for how it arrived. Reviewing the Water Supply Master Plan, I was impressed with both the breadth and depth of the research and recommendations to ensure the water will be there when the faucet is turned on. I sincerely compliment the ACOM team, the Tier 3 team, and Centre Wellington staff who worked together to produce this document. It is an excellent roadmap to start our journey to find new sources of water, as well as how to best use the resources we are currently using. As with most journeys, change happens due to unforeseen circumstances and plans change. This report is flexible enough to address change if confronted. The life expectancy of a municipal well and promoting another water main linking Fergus and Elora deserved more discussion than occurred in the report. Municipal wells, like cars, have a life cycle cost and duration. Despite regular maintenance, they eventually deteriorate until economically and operationally it is best to remove them. 80 years is a reasonable life expectancy, and we have a few wells approaching that lifespan. We may be drilling more wells than have been identified, and it is best we plan now for that eventuality. Relying on only one connection point that joins Fergus and Elora water systems is risky. Should the Aboyne booster pump break down, we could be at risk if a significant water demand event were to happen. Elora would be the community most at risk. It is best from a redundancy perspective to have a second connection joining the two systems. An option could be a water main running the entire length of Colburn Street to join Fergus and Elora. The second line would also provide better water quality and pressure that are challenges when you do not have looped systems. The Water Supply Master Plan referenced a report prepared by Hunter and Associates titled Potable Water Sources 2018 to 2041 and Beyond. This privately funded report was provided free to the Water Supply Master Plan team and township to assist with securing our future water supply. Although water pressure balancing was not a requirement of the Water Supply Master Plan, the Hunter report addresses this issue. I encourage our staff and councillors to consider its recommendations before opting to hire a consulting firm to do the work. Like the McDonald Trust, and knowing the typical costs associated with consulting engineering studies, this too is a gift to the community not to be squandered. Thank you.
Councilor Kitchus?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions. I'd just like to seek some clarification. On page 64, I was wondering when the water quality is done, we had old dumps, and I was just wondering if there's any impact on our water quality from the old dumps that are in Fergus and Elora. So it doesn't say anything about that, and I was just wondering, because I mean, they're probably 50 feet deep and, and then they're covered and then it seeps. And so I'm just wondering, is there any part of the water quality that will map that or study that?
Yeah, through Mayor Linton, great question. So those are known locations, the former, like I call them, a closed landfill. And essentially, how we've treated them is we've tried to keep new locations far away from any closed dump. So we have those concentric circles around potential areas. None of them are near a closed landfill. So ones like there's one on Wellington Road 7, there's one off BD Line. Those are nowhere near a proposed well location. So they were included in the mapping. They're included in the evaluation criteria as we identify and rank potential locations. And yeah, certainly we're well aware of those locations, and new wells weren't placed anywhere near any closed landfills.
Councillor Kittrus?
So we don't know from any studies what the travel is from those dumps. What about private wells? Would they just, like there are private wells, they're kind of, we're in a rural area.
Yeah, through Mayor Linton. So that's an area regulated by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks now. And essentially they, and Kyle was here, he was very involved with this at his time with the ministry. But essentially, you know, at the ministry level, they have a priority ranking system that again kind of looks at which ones need to be investigated, which ones they're, you know, relatively certain are low risk, okay, and which ones are higher risk. And so the ones here in terms of risk to the water supply system, I think are relatively low risk. They're not in our current wellhead protection areas. But certainly, that said, things could change down the road, right? So, yeah.
Councillor Kittrus?
One of the questions that was in the public feedback was about the contamination migration from F1 to F2. And the reasons given here were that they're at different depths. And I'm just it just sort of states the different depths, but it doesn't give any reasons why. That's on page 81. It doesn't give an explanation why it wouldn't go from one well to the other. Like, and it's because the F2 is where we're going to be allocating new funds to rejuvenate that. It's lower, and I'm just wondering, does the water when it's in the ground defy gravity? Like it's just sort of like, or is those two levels of water, are they impermeable between each other? And that's a hydrologist question. I know that.
Thank you. I think you're better now. So I believe some of that question to that effect was answered by Matthew in the meeting. Yeah. What was the date of it? June 10th meeting. And part of our criteria that we have is to maintain a hydraulic head or a water level within the new F2 that would be at a higher elevation than at the existing F1 well. Water flows by gradient, what we could term as gradients in the subsurface, so from areas of higher pressure or higher water level to areas of lower pressure, lower water level. So if you have an example that the F2 level is drawn lower than the F1 level, the water would move in that direction and vice versa. We talked about F1 being what's termed a hydraulic trap, meaning that it has a lower water level than the areas surrounding it. So it would be the area where water would converge and contain the same thing, contaminants would converge within that area. So part of the criteria for operations of a new deepened F2 would be to maintain that water level at a height above the F1 water level such that the gradient still flows toward F2 versus in the other direction toward F1 versus back towards F2.
Councillor McCray?
And the plan too for F2 was to case it all the way down below F1?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is the correct, is to case, excuse me, the new F2 well entirely through the Guelph Formation to the upper part of the Goat Island.
Councillor Kittrus?
It says in this report that the F1 well is 79.5 meters deep and the F2 well is 116 meters deep. So the F2 is deeper than the F1. So can you explain to me from what you just said that you want the F1 to be deeper, but the F2 is actually deeper?
Yes, thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor. So the well depth is not so much a function of the movement of the contaminants in the environment. The contaminants will be where they are in the environment, and their movement is dictated by the changes in hydraulic pressure or gradient within the water system. So the height of the water level. So the depths of the wells isn't really as it's not a decisioning factor as to whether the contaminants will migrate or not migrate.
Councilor Kittrus?
So then if the well depth is not the determinant, then what is the determinant of how it moves? Is it just the pressure that you're applying?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is the change in pressure and the change in the water levels is what dictates the movement. The greater the difference in the water levels, the higher the rate of movement within the groundwater system.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Township of Center Washington convene, no. Didn't sound right. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Washington endorse the water supply master plan, direct staff to publish the notice of study completion in accordance with statutory requirements under the Environmental Assessment Act as outlined in report IS 2019-25 dated July 22nd, 2019. And that council directs staff to bring forward programs, studies, and projects included in the water supply master plan recommended alternative for consideration in the capital and operating budget deliberations. Move for that recommendation, Councillor McCray, seconded by Councillor McElwain. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much to ACOM. Thank you very much for staff. Thank you very much to the community who are part of this process. This is a really significant report. It gives us significant direction for the future and knowing that we're in good hands when it comes to looking after our quality and quantity of water long term here. So thank you very much for that. And just to reiterate that this would, now the council has endorsed this, this will begin the 45-day report once this is submitted to on the EBR, correct?
It'll start once the ad goes in the paper. So I think it's August 8th will be the start of the 45-day.
Okay.
But we, of course, would still accept comments anytime.
Okay, so we are still accepting comments, and it's on CW Connect CW. Okay, and just to let people know, we do have a Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference that's coming up in August, and we have requested a meeting with the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and one of the items that we'd be wanting to talk to them about is the passing of this water supply master plan. So we haven't had, that meeting hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's coming up in mid-August. So we continue our efforts on that front. Thank you very much. Moving on to 10.2, appointment of a chief building official. And we have a report from our chief building official, Randy. Welcome, Randy.
Good afternoon, Mayor Linton and members of council. I'm before you this afternoon because the Building Code Act requires council to appoint a chief building official, such as myself, and the inspectors, as are necessary for the enforcement of the Act, and of course the Act is the Building Code Act. So the building division has had a few staffing changes over the past little while. We had 2 building officials move on, and so we're removing them from the appointment bylaw. And we've successfully recruited 2 new building officials, so we're very excited about that. Denise Johnston is the one building official, and Stacy Pennington is the other building official that we've recruited. And so before you is the appointment bylaw. And once we get council's appointment on the new building officials, they'll be able to get up and running and exercise their full duties under the Building Code Act. And that's it. Be pleased to take any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Ray. Any questions from council? Okay. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw appointing a chief building official and building officials. Mover for that recommendation, Councilor Dunsmore, seconded by Councilor Foster. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 10.3, a CIP Level 2 Priority Site Incentive, Fergus Marketplace. This is exciting. Report from Managing Director of Planning and Development, Brett Salmon. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. Yes, as noted, the Fergus Marketplace applied for CIP. They are a priority site designated by council back in 2015. So they're eligible for the maximum amount of $20,000, which is in the form of a $10,000 loan and a $10,000 grant. The work you can see proposed is on the facade that faces the Grand River. So we've, beautified the other side of the river with the library and the Riverwalk. So this is a welcome change to the building. You can see on, I guess it's page 93 of your agenda, what the proposed revision to that side of the building. The walk along takes you back to the Goofy Newfie. New signage that says Fergus Marketplace. Replacement of the siding and siding that is also in the abutments up top, and some new lighting, and it's pictured. So we had our CIP Advisory Committee, which is myself, Mariana, Dan, and Randy, and Pat. We reviewed the application, meets all the eligibility requirements. They provide the required cost estimates to do the work, and they are eligible for the maximum amount. And also, because the building's designated under the Heritage Act, they are required to have a heritage permit, and the plans were reviewed by the Heritage Committee some time ago, and were recommended for approval by the Heritage Committee. So the recommendation also includes the approval of the heritage permit. It's within the budget allocation that we have set aside for CIP for this year.
Great, thanks, Brett. We also have Jackie Fraser here from the Marketplace Condo Corp. To respond to anything or ask if we have any questions for her. So appreciate you being here, Jackie. I know it's a work day for you. This is exciting because we've done so much work on the backside of downtown Fergus, and so to see some of the changes that this looks like, this is something that we would hoped would have happened, and it's good to see it in front of us here today.
Yeah, I think Jackie engaged with staff quite some time ago and has finally put the package together that includes an application from the condominium board as a whole. So it's good to see this finally come forward.
Questions from council? Councilor Kitchus?
I'm just wondering how putting like steel cladding and large like big box sign is in going with the heritage of this building. I'm just wondering how that fits in with that.
Well, the heritage bylaw would designate specific items that are the heritage features and attributes that are to be protected within the bylaw. But this facade, and these are not box signs, they're letters directly on the wall, which are lettered or lighted from above, not backlit. So that's part of our facade improvement guidelines that we use for these kind of applications. The lights are the gooseneck lights that are already gone on one side of the building, on the Leggy Fitness side. So it's not a box like backlit sign. It's individual letters on the building. The material is material that's durable, and it's also recommended by our design guidelines. So we do look at those criteria. It's a the finish, I think, was looking worn on the building that's there today. So this is definitely, in our mind, it's a significant improvement, and it's a long length of wall, so it's pretty significant. You can see right now the wall there is just painted. So the more durable cladding is an improvement in our minds.
Councillor Van Leeuwen?
Thank you. And one comment, though, the materials definitely don't look the same on the photo as they do in real life, so there was a little bit of a discussion on that, how the materials sometimes look a little odd when you see a photo with it all just, so it should look much nicer in the photo itself as well.
Sorry, when you're saying the discussion at Heritage?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the discussion of heritage, I'm not even sure if this section, the back section of the concrete, is it a concrete block section? I think so. It's not stone, so it's not even a heritage protected wall, I believe. There was just that there's heritage listed on this property. Is that not the part of the case? I'm trying to remember because it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was. Well, I think in any heritage bylaw, it lists the specific attributes, and if this side of the building's not likely to be part of the significance, or that contributes to the significance, but our bylaw would still say that a heritage permit was required, because this facade is kind of visible from public space, but Mariana can.
And that was a bit of the discussion, and we did want to make sure it looks good, obviously, because people are going to see it from across the river, so, but if Mariana has more.
Marianne, do you have anything to add to that?
I can just add that, yeah, this wall is not part of the designation bylaw.
Yeah.
Through you, this wall is not part of the designation bylaw. It's the back of the building. It's a concrete block wall that was added later, so it's excluded from the designation. But it's also meant to mimic a board and batten style cladding on this portion, and that's why that material was chosen and proposed in order to sort of complement the stone on the building, the rest of the building.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kitchers?
But it's not board and batten, it's steel cladding, right? Is it?
Do you know what the material is offhand? Jackie will probably.
We're trying to mimic the idea of board and batten.
Yeah, just come right up to the mic and take your time. There's no rush.
We're trying to mimic the idea of board and batten, but really we're just painting the wall a better color than it is right now, and then putting in strapping so that it will look like board and batten from across the river. But of course, if you're up close, you'll see it is still just the concrete blocks that we're just going to paint and then put strapping on. It's a really long wall, so to actually put board and batten the whole way would be hugely expensive.
Councillor Kitchers?
I'm kind of concerned with this kind of economic development. There was a consultant that came a few years ago, or I think it's Brooks, came in and he wanted to emphasize the heritage, the Scottish. This, when I'm looking at this, it could be a warehouse like anywhere, and I just don't think that it's, in terms of community enhancing the downtown of Fergus, especially when you're walking on the other side, I don't know whether this actually, it's cleaner, but is it interesting? Does it enhance the heritage part of it? Does it enhance, does it have more people come downtown to look at it? Like, does it attract people to cross that bridge to go to those stores? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it does, actually. I think that it's kind of a cleaner, single painted place. And I'm just sort of wondering, like, how we're supposed to enhance Fergus. I don't know if you've gone there to go at night. It's pretty much dead after 6 o'clock. Like, we need to do something to add to more, and this is a huge canvas to bring people there. And I'm sort of just wondering whether this was the only option, or whether there was any other discussion about what to do with that. And I'm just sort of, I'm afraid for Fergus downtown. I want to attract people to Fergus downtown. I want people to come across the river and they're not looking at a blank gray wall. Like basically, it's colored gray, so I assume it's going to be gray. And I just sort of wondering what else they're going to do, like if they're going to do anything to bring people to know about the heritage, to go to those stores, to.
Well, I think, I mean, this is one aspect, and you're pointing out one piece of the plan that they have for the Fergus Marketplace. But the Fergus BAA has significant plans, and they've initiated significant actions downtown Fergus to do a lot of things that you've talked about already. And so the look and feel of downtown Fergus now versus, last year this time is significantly better. But this isn't going to do everything. This is to look after the one marketplace, which we've identified by establishing it as a priority site. We've identified this as something that is worthy of some tender loving care, I guess. And it looks, it's not gonna, again, to all the questions that you asked, it's not going to do everything, but it's a lot more than just slapping some paint on the side of a building. There's a significant number of activities that are planned for this building. So, Andy?
This is also just one piece of the puzzle to the marketplace. As Brett mentioned, the marketplace has been working on this for a number of years, so we've done some improvements on the Queen Street side and also the parking lot side. This is fixing up the building with the long-term plan is actually connecting the river trail with a boardwalk along the entire back part of the marketplace. And so structurally in that, trying to make sure the building's in place, there are some significant gaps in that boardwalk across. We've made the plan within the St. David Street bridge work for connecting that, so that actually from the pedestrian bridge to the St. David Street bridge, there will be a linear linkage that will draw people across to be able to come across and walk across the entire back length of the marketplace, as well as fixing up the street part on Queen Street. And so this is just one part of the puzzle that they know financially that they can afford to do and is within the numbers that we have to make available. But the boardwalk itself is going to be a significant contribution that the marketplace is going to have to make on their own components. So is that? Yeah.
Of context. We actually, gosh, how many years ago? I feel like this project's been going on forever. I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, we ran a competition actually and opened it to the public to say, hey, come up with some ideas, because we recognize that the back of the building just looks awful. So we got a bunch of ideas. Some great ideas came through. I actually had, in the terms of reference of this competition, like we wanted to connect the boardwalk. It's still my big dream, but we realized it's beyond what we could afford. As a condo corp, where some of you would be familiar with how condos are run, it's pretty constraining and trying to spend a lot of capital. So that's not something that's anything we're going to be able to afford anytime soon. So right now we're just trying to do what we can afford to do and fix things up and improve the looks. I have lots of dreams about that building and what can be done, and opening up more shops towards the back and having that boardwalk all the way along, I think would be awesome. But I have to be a little more patient, and we have to sort of work through step by step. But there's a number of improvements, and the township's worked with us on Queen Street facade. God knows there's a million things I'd love to do on that front as well. So I think it's baby steps. I'm not the most patient person in the world either, so we're working through it.
Councillor McCray.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. Are there plans to have wall hangings along that wall like you currently have? Because given that neutral color, it would certainly lend itself to having wall hangings, or maybe even historic photographs of the riverfront way back when, that as people walk across, they'll see the photos and have a closer look.
It's funny you bring that up, because originally the plan was for those windows that are now painted like flags. So the Goofy Newfie, that's essentially been their entrance. So they painted all the windows and all the maritime flags, and that's what's painted there now. And of course, they're all faded now and needing redone. So originally, we really looked at using those. They're not even real windows. They've been already covered over, but using those somehow to depict what's in the marketplace. Like, do we have a picture of a fly fisherman and a picture of some beautiful strawberries or something to depict what's on the Queen Street side? And then we just got worried about, oh, you're picking and choosing different businesses come and go, how do you do that? Then we went down the historical photo route, and we realized, you know, people are looking from across the river. We just kind of thought, go clean, go simple, make it nice, and just abandoning the windows itself. But there's, I mean, years of discussion on those kinds of things. We talked about putting a mural there as well, which would be really cool, except it's cool for 5 years, so you got to repaint it. And so, you know, these are, there was a lot. I mean, we really have been working on this for a long time, and we did kind of go the simplistic route. But we did discuss a lot of those options, so.
Okay, I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington award level 2 facade building and property improvement grant loan to the Fergus Marketplace 105 Queen Street in the amount of $10,000 grant and a $10,000 loan, and that council delegate the signing authority for the necessary financial agreements to the Managing Director of Corporate Services Treasurer. Mover for that recommendation, Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Dunsmore. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, that's carried. Okay, good. Sorry, he was just a little slow on the hand there. Thank you very much. And looking forward to seeing those changes come up. Thanks for working with our staff on that, Jackie. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming today. 10.4, rezoning and heritage permit application. Mariana?
Thank you, Mayor Linton, members of council. The application before you is a rezoning application for 33 Henderson Street in Elora. The property is located on the south side of Henderson Street, just west of Getty's, west of the downtown area. The property is designated residential in the official plan and is currently zoned R1A residential. It's also designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act as a property with significant cultural heritage value and was built as the First Baptist Church in Elora. The owners propose to restore the existing protected heritage building, which is in need of stabilization and repair and has been vacant for several years. And they would like to be able to provide a small-scale limited commercial uses and reuse the buildings for commercial residential opportunities. The existing barn building is proposed to be removed and reconstructed as well with a slightly smaller footprint to comply with the building code. So rezoning is proposed to allow residential units in the second building and limited commercial uses on the ground floor of either building. So this came before you for a public meeting on May 29th, and there were some delegations that also attended the meeting and presented some concerns. Mostly the concerns were based around the commercial zoning of the property that was proposed and allowing the the commercial uses on the property. So staff have reviewed all of the reports submitted with the application. The Heritage Committee has also reviewed the heritage permit application. And the owners' consultants are here today again if there are any questions that arise. But staff are recommending approval tonight or today of the rezoning application and the heritage permit application because it is a positive change on the street and is bringing life back into a heritage asset. And the zoning amendment on page 111 of your agenda basically outlines what would be permitted on the site and staff's opinion that it complies with the provincial and county and township policies and is recommending approval. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mariana. Questions from council? Councilor Kittrus?
I just want to say that this was like one of the best reports I've ever seen. It was so thorough and so well put together, and from the planner's point of view, I mean, I've seen a lot of reports, but this one, I mean, it really plugged all the holes and did everything, and I just want to say it was a great report.
Councilor McRae?
Yeah, just following on from what Councillor Kittrus said, I'd just like to applaud the efforts of the owners of the 33 Henderson Street building and the team who addressed heritage and zoning concerns related to the project. I think they've come a long way in trying to address community concerns. And I think it's important for us as a community to meet them part way in approving this zoning change.
Councilor McElwain?
Thanks, Shelley. Just a quick question. I may have missed it. Yeah, it is an excellent report, but it's long, and I probably missed the point. Is it going to be renamed to a Margaret Street address?
Through you, yes, I have spoken with our GIS coordinator, and we can definitely put a Margaret Street address on it. We've confirmed some of the legal issues around Margaret Street, so it can have a Margaret Street address. There could be one on Henderson and one on Margaret as well for the, perhaps the residential portion on Henderson and then the commercial portion on Margaret Street.
Councillor Van Leeuwen?
Thank you. The one thing I'd like to say is, especially with the Heritage Committee and being on it now, the amount of work that goes in every time to these buildings and the site visits and the discussions, it's always amazing to see. One thing I always get excited is when we see older heritage buildings getting repurposed. And that's a big thing, because these things sit empty and they sit and they sit and they sit. And sometimes it's because of restrictions. So this is exciting to see this move forward and actually get some use in the community again as well. So that's an exciting piece.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, I just want to echo, I can't wait to see this building built and the changes happen. It's going to be amazing. Really appreciate it. Appreciate staff, appreciate the property owners working with our team, and appreciate all the work that goes in from Heritage Center Wellington to make sure that we're providing that kind of service and support to individuals and families who want to see these properties brought to their former glory. So thanks all around. I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington approves application RZ02/19 as amended, and that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2009-045 be given 3 readings, and that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington confirms that a further public meeting under the Planning Act is not required prior to enactment of the zoning bylaw amendment, and that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington approves Heritage Permit Application HP 2019-001 for the restoration of the former Baptist Church building, and that all alterations on the property as outlined in the application. Move for that recommendation, Councillor McCray, seconded by Councillor McElwain. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mariana. 10.5, appointment to the Grand River Nonprofit Housing Corporation. And we have a report from Lisa. It's pretty self-explanatory. She's here to answer any, no, she isn't here to answer any questions, but Carrie would love to. Any questions from council on this one? Okay, I have a recommendation. The Council of the Township of Center Wellington confirm the appointment of William Wright as a Class A Director for the Grand River Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board. Move for that recommendation, Councillor Kittredge, seconded by Councillor Dunsmore. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to information items, section 11, we have 4 information items there. Tender Award Committee report, April to June. We have Dan to answer any questions related to that. Minutes from the Economic Development Task Force from June 6th. Minutes from the Healthy Growth Advisory Committee meeting on June 5th. And our Committee of the Whole Tracking List 2019-2022. Any items there that council wants to comment or question? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kittredge, seconded by Councillor Van Leeuwen. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.